ready to go.
Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. Today we're working on a 18-inch Craftsman chainsaw that we picked up a couple of days ago. Now, it won't start, but I got to look inside the cylinder, and I threw a little starter fluid in it, and she does kick a little bit, so that tells me we've got enough compression, and the engine's in good enough shape to get her running. Now, the user took the carburetor apart on this one, and took all the linkage off and everything, and broke the carburetor while he was doing it. He broke one of the linkage accessories on the carburetor. So we're going to go ahead and put a carburetor on it and see if we can't get her running. If you're doing this at home, I strongly recommend, if you don't have a little bit of experience, you don't have an ultrasonic and all that whatnot to clean a carburetor, it's usually easy to just replace the carburetor anyway. So let's get started. And all you new people out there, go ahead and subscribe. It's free and we really do appreciate it. Now this carburetor is everything you want and a bag of chips. I got this bag along with the carburetor, and this bag's kind of funny. That's the reason we're replacing the carburetor. You can see he tried to take it apart and did his best, but unfortunately he made more of a mess than anything. But you got to give him credit for trying. He probably should have watched a couple of videos before he got started. Nope, there's no screw in that one. We've only got 2 screws for this one. So let's get our cover off and see what we've got going here. Now it is nice and neat in here. That's something. Let's go ahead and pull our carburetor out and get it out of the way. And we'll take a look at our fuel lines next. See what they look like. Yeah, those things aren't even tightened even a little bit. So he only kind of put it back together. Hopefully we've got all the screws and bolts and whatnot to put this back together correctly. Okay, before we pull that any farther, we're going to have to pull the fuel lines for this part. One's already missing. And I'm sure it doesn't have any fuel in it, but let's take a look. No, she's bone dry. That saves us a little bit of work. There we go. And here's our old carburetor. Now on these, there's a couple of different kind of carburetors. And the biggest difference in the carburetor is this linkage. You have some which have a steel bar going through, and some that just manually reach over and activate the second butterfly. I usually try to find them with this activation rather than the ones with the steel bar, because these will fit just about anywhere, where the ones with the steel bar won't. Okay. Let's see what we got going on here. And let's have a look inside. I'm just making sure I don't have any old fuel lines laying around. I know you might say to yourself, well, why would you have old fuel lines laying around? But sometimes you do. Here, I got an old fuel filter hanging around in there. There we go. We won't be using you again. So let's put some fuel lines on her. So now we'll thread this through so it comes out here. Attach our new line and pull her back through. People will tell you there's 100 ways to do fuel lines, but I kind of think there's only one. Okay, come on, buddy, through the hole. There you go. And that'll be primer 1. That would come from the carburetor on the out, and the long one is the out. That goes back to the tank on the return side. See, the way this works is this will go to the carburetor, and when you pump this, it pulls it out of the tank through the carburetor back into the bulb after it's gone through the carburetor, and then it returns any excess back to the tank. We're going to make sure we get her on nice. And take your time when you're doing this, and remember that you got all the time in the world, and you don't have to take it apart again later. I don't know what that's for. I'm sure we're not going to use it. We'll get that little piece of perfect line all ready to go. This should be ideal for our purposes. And cut the taper in it. Now it's a lot longer run from here back to the tank. Or, I'm sorry, back to the gas cap. The back ones always have some entertainment value. Go through the hole. Let's see where she's at. And there she is. When you're doing yours, it might not go quite that easy. But keep in mind, I've had to do this 2 or 3 times. I've had a little practice. So if it gets frustrating, don't let it bother you. Oh, and I hate when that happens. What we just did was it pulled loose. I think it pulled loose too far, or I'm not going to be able to grab it and pull it back up. Come on, I got that little bitty end showing. Oh, look at that. We're going to get away with it this time. And we do. Usually we end up starting over when that happens. Now we don't want to pull it too far. This is the side we get our filter on. Let's pull her back in, toss our filter on. And you'll find a lot of lawnmower videos out there and a lot of weed eaters and things of people fixing them. But chainsaws get fixed at least as much as lawnmowers do, and probably quite a bit more, because they tend to sit for a long time in between uses. But people don't like to make videos on chainsaws because chainsaws can make you look stupid. Okay, we're almost there. Now you can edit these to death to make it look like everything went perfect every time. But I don't like to do that. I don't like to edit mine terribly much. The only thing I'll edit out is if I stop to eat a cookie or go get a soda or something, I'll edit that out because you don't want to just sit here and look at dead air. But the actual working on the engine, I try to leave intact. If I make a mistake, I want you to see it so you can it'll help you avoid that same mistake. Because I work on these quite a bit. And if I make a mistake doing something, that means it's probably a pretty common mistake, or it's a trickier than average part. Okay, we've got the filter laying in a nice place inside the tank. So at this point, what we want to do is make sense of the linkage, which we didn't have when we started, unfortunately. And try to get this bad boy back together. Okay, this linkage usually sits like this. And this one's an easier than the average one. It just clips right in right here. Some of them can be a little bit of a bear where you have to get inside here and take the case apart. But not today. Today we're going to have an easy one. So I'll put linkage number 1 on. See, our linkage number 1 goes right here. And we'll keep our fuel lines out of the way. We could do our fuel lines right now if you preferred. So you know what you want to do is accelerate the engine and then find your spot to put your linkage back in. Just like that. As you can see, works like a charm. Now, we're going to put the choke lever on now. And there's only one reason I'm going to put the choke lever on now, is because I always forget the choke lever later. That way it'll be there when we put the cover back on. When we put this back on, because it goes underneath right there. Whoops, where's it at? It goes underneath right there. Like so. Okay, where were we? Fuel lines. Let's do the fuel lines. That's next. Okay. So the first thing we'll do is thread this one through. We're going this way only because it's a little easier to get to than the other way. There we go. Good. Run her up to our primer bulb. It's a nice short little line in this case. So we'll cut her right here. Use our handy pliers to plug her in. I said use our handy pliers to plug her in. Come on, don't argue with me. There we go. She's done pretty good. And then we'll push our primer bulb back in. And the lines are sitting in a really nice angle, so we're all good there. Let's attach our fuel line, put our air filter on, and give this bad boy a test. When you're cutting these lines, consider the fact that you can't make them longer later. Like I say, you can cut more off, but you can't cut more on. And when you've gotten this far into the project, if your lines aren't long enough, well, everything you've done up to that point is wasted. And there we go. Now the only thing left is to go ahead and bolt the carburetor on, bolt this plate back on, and give her a run, see what she's got. The choke, can't forget the choke. I can't tell you how many times I've put these together, put the screws in, and then realized I had this little lever sitting off to the side. And choke works correctly. Very nice. This has been pretty cooperative, considering that I got everything in a plastic bag, and I was expecting this thing to fight me all the way. It's been a pretty cooperative little unit, so I'm expecting good things. I expect her to crank right up and run good. Make sure everything's not hanging up, and it's not. Everything looks really nice. I've got a lot of faith in this one. Let's put our new air filter in. Now, I hate these carb covers. The design on these leaves a lot to be desired. This thing holds it in place. But what are you going to do? They didn't call me when they were designing it. He's probably just as good because I would have had some unfortunate words for him on that design. Okay, where's our screws at? There's one. There's the other one. And of course on this one we've only got two. So the only thing we've got left is to put a little bit of fuel in it and test it. And I wish I had that third screw. I'll have to find one for it before I sell it. So let's put a little fuel in it and see if she runs. All right, it's going to be a good day. We put fuel in it without losing any fuel. No splashes or anything. That's how I like to start off a Monday. Okay, primer bulb is filling up nicely. Full choke. Make sure she's on. Let's put her on the floor and try her out. It's about 5 after 7 in the morning right now. So I'm going to be popular with the neighbors when I do this if it works. Oh. Full choke. Okay, she needs a tune-up, but she sounds pretty good. You can hear it bogging down. Let's put her on. Let's get the tools and tune her up real quick. And that went pretty well. She sounds pretty close. I don't know which one it is, so I'm going to grab all of them. Oh. And a flashlight so I can see down into the little tuning holes. Now we're going to take a guess at a spline to start off. That's the Pac-Man. That'll be my second guess. That's another Pac-Man. It's a big Pac-Man. There you go. Yep, and she is a spline. So now we're going to start it. And since it idles okay, right out of the box, it was idling nice. We're only going to adjust the high side on it. You can hear that little bit of fog. There we go. And all I need now is to clean up my floor because I just made a mess and I'm ready to go. Okay, adjusting the chain on one of these is pretty easy peasy. We're going to loosen this up just a touch. I missed. Okay, that should do it. I'll take a flathead screwdriver. In this case, every one of these is a little different. This is not my favorite adjustment, but it is what it is. Let's make sure the blades are moving. Okay, she'll move. It looks like this one might be ready for a new chain. I think we're using up all of our adjustment here. Nope, she's still got some left. We'll put her right there and we'll tighten her. After you tighten these bolts, double check it because sometimes it'll change the tightness of the chain. Ow. you're good to go. You're good to go. Chain's a nice tightness now. Let's start her up, see if we got a chainsaw. Yep, she's completely functional. It's definitely not the prettiest chainsaw I've ever seen, but she runs pretty good and she sounds good and now she starts good. So I hope this was helpful, and for all you new people, go ahead and subscribe. It's free. We'll see you next time.